Okay, I think we're going. No, go ahead.
All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody to this interview of two Frederick Douglass faculty fellows. I'm Joseph Krosky, and I'm the executive director of the Frederick Douglass Institutes, and we'll just go around and do quick introductions first. Elizabeth?
My name is Elizabeth Richardson. I work here at East Stroudsburg University in the Office of University Relations. We do all of the marketing and communications for the school, and President Lon asked me to connect and to help with this effort. So I'm happy to learn more. I write the press releases, so I kind of have a basic understanding from when you both started earlier in the academic year, but it's really great to put faces to names and to learn more about you.
Thank you. Dr. Bay?
I'm Hanif. Good morning. I've been with the Department of Sociology, Social Work, and Criminal Justice now coming this fall, 8 years. So I teach social work and enjoy doing it.
Thank you, Hanif. Dr. Brown, Professor Brown.
Oh, thank you so kindly. I'm Wes Brown. I'm now a teaching faculty for my first year here at ESU. I teach in the arts. Ceramics is my primary course load.
All right, thank you all. And I'd like to just get a feel for your personal background. So if you would, Hanif, just if you could share a little bit about the moment that you knew you really wanted to be a faculty member, or you really wanted to teach this work that you've been doing.
Sure. So that idea didn't start until I actually had the opportunity to be a guest speaker. I've been doing social work now for about 31 years, direct practice work. And one day, Dr. John Crable-Grego, the department chair, had asked me to come in and speak because of our relationship, because I worked at the hospital, which is literally across the street from the university as a social worker there for about 17 years. He asked me to come and speak to his class. And I think I did pretty well, because I was asked to come and speak again year after year. And then I guess there was an opportunity to teach a class on crisis intervention. And I was asked to teach. That was actually my first opportunity. I had my master's degree at the time. And once I did it, I, of course, was scared, nervous. You know, when you're in front of college students, undergrads, you get all these blank faces when you present questions, and, you know, you think you're prepared and you're really not that prepared. And so overly prepared, talking too long, lecturing too long, and I realized that's really not my style. And so, you know, I was encouraged by some of the colleagues here in the department who were former professors of mine in the master's degree. Dr. Leiter, Professor Hope Horowitz had encouraged me to go and get my doctorate degree, and ended up getting my doctorate degree, a doctorate in social work, and have been with the department now for almost 8 years, and really enjoyed it. But I never really thought I would be a professor. In terms of my background, my grandmother, who just recently died 2 years ago, she died at a age of 103. She worked as a custodial person in the school that I went to in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. And, you know, I grew up chasing her around in the school after classes, helping her clean the floors. Never really expected that I would be a educator in school. And, you know, it just shows that, you know, life has its twists and turns, and fate brings you to where you should be. So everything happens for a reason. That's just a little bit about me.
Thank you, Hanif. That's wonderful. Wes, would you like to share a little bit about how you became a professor of art?
Yeah, I mean, I will give this correction. As of currently, I am just an instructor, non-tenure track on a 1-year contract. It looks like it'll get renewed. I'd say that the first time I think I really thought about teaching was probably in grad school, and unlike Hanif, I am very new to the game. This is my first full-time faculty job for the last 4 years since graduating from grad school at Indiana University in Bloomington. Me and my wife have lived in 4 different states in 4 years. So very much the teaching gig, moving from place to place. Some of those were doing residencies, some of those were doing adjunct work. I'd say that it was really in grad school when I thought that the idea of teaching sounded nice. And then for my 3-year program, when I hit my 2nd year, I actually got to have a class and got to teach for the first time. And it suddenly clicked like, oh, this thing that I thought would be fun actually is fun. And there's something about like watching students really, especially because I love ceramics, watching students really engage with the material and get to that level of exploration. It was just so exciting. So why wouldn't I want to be in places like that? And I feel very fortunate that many of the professors I've had over the years, from my time in community college all the way up to grad school, were people who were both passionate practicing artists, who were doing things on the national and international scale when it came to shows and getting their work out, but they also had a passion for teaching. And I wouldn't even say that you could say teaching, but also for challenging students. At least in my case, I felt like I was challenged a tremendous amount to go beyond what I would have done on my own. So when it comes to me and teaching, it's just been one of those things where it's a way for me to share my passion for art and ceramics with a new generation, and to see just how much you can push people in a nice and polite way to go beyond.
To get more out of them than they ever dreamed possible. Okay. It seems like both of you all were inspired by faculty that you had the opportunity to work with or network with, and got that brief moment to teach that inspired more desire to teach in this way, to profess in this way. Hanif, I'll come back to you. So your route to becoming a professor, and I'm thinking about the Frederick Douglass Faculty Fellow way, you know, it was a little different than most, but how has your experience been in terms of that Frederick Douglass? What do you think that has allowed you to do?
Well, I think that a lot of my research has revolved around issues of racism and oppression prior to being asked to become a Frederick Douglass Scholar. So I thought it was a good opportunity. I have a class that has been approved starting this fall. I think it's probably one of the few undergraduate courses on anti-oppressive social work practice with a focus on anti-racism. And these ideas came about long time ago on a lot of the work that I did on a nonprofit level before becoming a teacher at East Stroudsburg University. And so, you know, a lot of the things that have occurred since I would say 2016 and moving forward really has placed the issues of racism, structural racism and oppression really at the forefront of our society and in higher education. And so I think the Frederick Douglass Scholar opportunity has really allowed me to kind of share some things that perhaps years ago maybe wasn't as they say, fashionable or hot button topics. I know that the Council on Social Work Education has their draft of the new education policy and standards, and one of the competencies for social workers, if approved, is to engage social workers in anti-oppressive, anti-racist work, and really putting racism and oppression at the forefront of social work education. And so I think the Frederick Douglass opportunity has really become kind of an opening for these types of discussions. And my hope is, and I know I have a couple of presentations to do, one at ESU, I think in April. I have one coming up on Friday at Kutztown, talking about critical race theory from a social work perspective. So, I'm looking forward to, I know, there hasn't been many meetings related to what others are doing. I know a little bit about Wes and what he is doing as well, only because I get the emails. But in terms of as a group, my hope is that at some point we could do something much bigger for the campus and for PASSHE as well.
Thank you for bringing that up. As the beginning in this work, I just started in February as executive director. One thing I hope to do is to make a network of PASSHE Frederick Douglass scholars so that you can all participate in personal and professional development throughout the year that you are as in that role. So we'll connect you all in a more formal way moving forward so that you have that opportunity to network. You can share what's going on and what's working. And we'll also be able to provide you with training that will help you understand what's required of faculty in terms of getting tenure and getting promoted. And so we'll be providing that, as well as some pedagogical kinds of tips as well. So we are working to expand that facet of the Frederick Douglass Institute. So I appreciate you saying that. And I really appreciate your research that you're doing. And I can imagine that this new class and the presentations you're going to make are really going to inform your community and further out. Those will have ripple effects. And I can imagine that same type of work going back into the hospital where you worked previously. So looking forward to seeing more of that, Hanif. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Wes, what about your experience? You traveled to a few places and now you found a place with Frederick Douglass here. How has Frederick Douglass how's your experience been with the Frederick Douglass Institute?
It's been different. It's a big shift, going from being an adjunct and teaching a few classes to suddenly essentially running my own studio here in ceramics and being the one who is where the buck stops. It's one thing to come into a department and when something gets broken or you don't know where a thing goes or how something works, you just go to the professor in charge and you're just like, hey, how do you fix this? And now I get to be that person. So if a kiln breaks or a wheel doesn't work, or we don't know where to store something, there's nowhere else to turn. I have to figure out some new solution. So it's been a really big challenge transferring and becoming a full-time faculty member. And I'd say when it comes to like the Frederick Douglass, it's been interesting because I feel like I'm pretty new in my career, but I'm getting a lot of exposure. And one of the things that I think I've had a really great opportunity to do, especially this year, is I've been invited out to a couple of different other universities and institutions to give talks and to demonstrate my own personal artistic practice. So like last semester, I went and was one of the key presenters at the Indiana Clay Conference and was able to give a lecture. And part of my lecture and part of the work that I've done in the past is actually dealt with race. And what does it mean to be African American in the Western canon of visual and iconic imagery? And then I also got an invitation to LSU as well. And just 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got to present here on campus my own personal work and research as a part of the Provost Colloquium. So getting an opportunity outside of the classroom to talk about these issues and getting to engage with the audience, particularly the Provost Colloquium, I was quite honored to even get approved to speak. But after I finished my hour talk, we actually had to cut short the 30-minute questions at the end because we hit full time. And even after that, people came and asked more questions, particularly about the work that I had done with race and how my work had evolved. And so getting an opportunity to really branch out and talk about those things I get to address them to a certain degree in the classroom, mostly talking about culture and asking students to think about themselves and the cultures that they come from and how do they approach things, but then also getting to present my own work. So the transition to being a Frederick Douglass Scholar and a full-time faculty has been one that's been incredibly challenging with this new load of responsibilities, but it's also been really, really rewarding because I feel like I have an audience, especially at ESU and even going out from there, where people are willing to listen, and that's always a really big step is getting people to listen. So yeah.
All right, well, thank you. We will certainly invite you out to Clarion. I know Professor Greeny, Gary Greenberg, is going to do a firing here pretty soon. He's our ceramics artist. And for Juneteenth, Kirsten Woodruff is going to do a traditional formation of clay. It's an African way of forming molds. Now I've just forgotten the name, so I should have looked that up before I spoke to you. But maybe we can get you involved in those kinds of things as well. Let me switch directions a little bit. Do either one of you have advice for young graduate students seeking faculty positions? Like, what would you share in terms of ways to find faculty roles?
I think, you know, from my experiences thus far, I think being spontaneous and not being too scripted in our approach. I think it should, you know, at least from a social work perspective, I think engaging students, encouraging them to talk when they do, and really advocating for critical thinking is important. You know, I learned over the years, kind of on my own, and thankfully with the doctorate program that I was a part of that really focused on teaching and leadership, is that you could prepare for a lecture and, you know, write everything out, but things change real quickly. And certainly COVID-19 was an example of that, how we had to switch suddenly to online learning. And so that, I think that's another important tool that educators should have, especially new educators should have available to them, is it being aware of some of the learning management systems that are out there, of course, D2L being one of them. I think those two things are important, particularly as we move forward in the future. Who's to say if there's another pandemic, epidemic, or whatever, but online learning is important, and being able to switch to that is helpful, and know how to do that is key.
I'm gonna file that under continuous learning. Thank you. Thanks, honey. Wes?
Future advice for students looking for jobs in the teaching career. Ooh. I can only speak for the arts. And man, I'd say the one thing, it always comes down to in the arts is it starts in the studio. You have to have the work. You can sound really nice, you can have good recommendations, but if you're not making the work, if you're not able to talk intelligently about what you're thinking about and what you're doing, if you can't be articulate, if you don't have the skill set, it's going to be really hard to get anything. I can say for myself, and I would give this advice that was given to me, but I'll give it with less profanity. When I was in undergrad, I met we had a visiting artist. He was a short, stubby guy. I don't know if you know the arts, but there are a lot of stereotypes. And people who do metal casting tend to be pretty metal, pretty hardcore. And he looked at me, and my professor brought me over to him and was just like, "This is Wes. He's thinking about going to grad school." And he looked at me and he grabbed me by the shoulders. He did not have all 10 fingers. He was one of those sculptors. He had some nubs. Hard guy. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't go to grad school to be an effing teacher." And I think he repeated it like 2 to 3 times at a pretty high volume. "Don't go to grad school to be an effing teacher." He's like, "Those jobs are drying up. There's absolutely no guarantee. You go to grad school to be the best artist that you can be." And so that's what I did, because the job field, especially for professorships, pretty small, though we are coming into a time with a lot of retiring. Um, know your options. Straight out of grad school, I knew that I was not ready for a job in teaching, so I applied to residencies. And so I spent a year, packed up all my stuff from Indiana with my wife, and we traveled to Baltimore, Maryland, where I did a residency for a year at Baltimore Clayworks, and really cut my teeth on teaching in the community setting. So I got to work with summer camps. I got to work with the mentally disabled. I got to work in the inner city teaching high school students. So take the opportunities where you can find them. And I would say my personal experience has been, if you're not ready to move, you're going to have a really hard time. You have to be willing to move to where the jobs are. But it all starts with the studio. All starts with, do you make the work?
That would be sound advice for any field. Thank you for reiterating that, Wes. And don't want to keep us too long. Is there any final words that either of you would like to share?
Well, I just want to thank you and everyone else in this meeting. It's a great opportunity to meet. Wes, this is the first time you and I think we were supposed to meet face to face at the I think it was the provost's home. So it's good to meet you virtually. Hopefully we'll get to see each other face to face on campus one day. And I just want to thank all of you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Hanif.
Yeah. Any final words? I could say there's too many. Yeah, I want to say thanks for this opportunity. To anyone who's getting into teaching, be prepared to change. There's so much that I thought I knew, and the more that I interact with students, the more that I'm realizing I don't know it. As an artist, I don't know if this works for every profession, but especially as an artist, say yes. Hanif talked about earlier about the need to be spontaneous. I can quote so many events in my life where I grew because I said yes to opportunities. And I think it's one of those, you could say that to the victor goes the spoils, but also to those who win, usually more winning comes. Your ability to say yes to things usually will grow in opportunities. And your ability, I'd say, to travel and expose yourself to as many different people and as many different walks of life will give you a better understanding of how people think and interact. And as a teacher, being able to relate to your students by understanding some of the places where they come from is an absolutely invaluable tool that cannot be taught in a classroom. As a teacher, you must be a person who likes people, and you have to be a person who wants to connect with people. So you need to go out and meet as many different people as possible. But yeah, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Wes. And I want to say thank you. It takes a village, so to speak, and we are grateful for ESU and Elizabeth providing us this platform to have this interview this morning and this opportunity for me to get to meet you all virtually. And especially want to thank the administration there for supporting the Frederick Douglass program and for supporting you all as Frederick Douglass scholars and continuing to help to innovate their curriculum diversify the faculty, and hopefully, like you stated, Wes, to make sure that we have faculty that can connect with our students, push our students to grow and do good things like you all are both doing in the community. So thank you very much for your contributions to ESU and to PASSHE, and look forward to meeting you in person.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thanks for taking a few minutes. And as soon as I have this file recorded, Joseph, I'll send it over to you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Wes.
And Wes, I'll send you a note about trying to get out to Clarion. I know Greenie has a firing and he brings in lots of people for the firing. So it might be a neat thing to participate in. And
Oh, I love a good wood firing. It's been,
all right.
I feel like it's been years since I've done one, but man, that was one of my first loves right there.
All right. Well, I'll find out when it's going to be and I'll let you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You never know the connections you're going to make.
That's right.
All right. You take it easy. And thank you again.
Thank you. Bye now. Thanks again, Elizabeth. Really
Happy to
appreciate
help.
it.
And I'll get, like I said, I'll get this, once I have this uploaded, the video, I'll send it over to you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.